Hey everybody, welcome to Using Adjective Clauses. I hope you survived diagramming. Again, if you're still very confused about it, you can contact me and I'll be glad to help you. Okay, but today we are on page 148 in your literature book. Don't look at those answers. And so get your literature book, turn to page 148. We're going to talk about using adjective clauses today. Okay, so remember, a clause is a group of words that has both a subject and a verb. It is used as part of a sentence. There are two different types of clauses. We have independent clause and a dependent clause. An independent clause shows a complete thought and can be stand alone as a sentence. Okay, so let's look at this sentence. Melissa is the last person who will give a testimony. So notice the words in italics. Melissa is the last person. So if we just had that as our sentence, oops, sorry guys. Can that stand alone as a sentence? Melissa is the last person. Yes, it can. What is my subject? Melissa. Good. What is my verb? Is. Good. Because remember, clauses have subject and a verb. So Melissa is. And then we have the last person. So that can stand alone. So that is an independent clause. So we also have dependent clause. Dependent clauses do not express a complete thought. Sorry, my husband's hanging something for me. Does not express a complete thought, and they cannot stand alone. So let's look at this example. These are the books that you will need for biology. So let's cover this part up. If all we had this, that you will need for biology, can that stand alone as a sentence? No, it cannot. Okay, but is there a subject and a verb? That's right. You is your subject. Will need is your verb. But since this cannot stand alone as a sentence, that you will need for biology, we have to connect it with another part of the sentence. These are the books that you will need for biology. Now that's a complete sentence. So we need this first part for this to be complete, because by itself is, what is this called? That's right, it's called a fragment. Okay, so let's look at rule number 4. A dependent clause that modifies. Remember, anytime you see the word modify, you just replace it with the word describes. A noun or a pronoun, we call them an adjective clause, because what words describe a noun or a pronoun? That's right, an adjective. So we're just saying a clause that describes a noun or a pronoun is called an adjective clause. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, okay? But you may say, Miss Flint, this is not easy. Well, I'm going to give you what I like to call my clue words to show you. I'm going to skip to that before I go over the example. I want you to see the clue words. Look at number 5. Adjective clauses are introduced by words called relatives, relative clauses. But these are the words that they start with: who, whom, which, that, and whose. How many words are there? So there's five words that introduce your adjective clauses. Okay? Who, whom, which, that, and whose. Those are the words you're looking for. Those are your clue words to tell you that a dependent adjective clause is coming. So now let's look at this example. The coat that I gave my mother is on the table. So, what's my adjective clause? That I gave my mother. Good. What word is it starting with? That. Very good. So let's circle that word. And now what word is it describing? Coat. That's why the arrow is pointed to coat, because that I gave my mother is describing coat. Okay? Let's look at this example we've already gone over. These are the books that you will need for biology. What is my clause? That you will need for biology. What is my clue word? That. What word is it describing? Books. Good. Okay? Now, a relative serves two purposes. One, so the relative, excuse me, hold on just a second. Relative meaning the word that's starting the clause. So all those in bold print are the words starting the clause. It introduces the clause, and it serves a grammatical function within the clause. What that means is it plays a role. It plays a role in the clause. So let's go over this. She is the one who will help us. What is my clause? Yep, my clause is who will help us. What is my relative pronoun? who. How do I know that? Because it's right up here in this list, right here on number 5. Okay? Right here, the job of who in this clause is acting as a subject. So you could say who is. And that could work. Now, can this stand by itself? Can I just say who is, can I just say who will help us? Okay, if it was a question, maybe, but that's not a question. It's just a statement, so no, that cannot stand by itself. So, the grammatical function, or the job, the role of who in this clause is the subject. So look at this one. He is the boy to whom the scholarship was granted. So this one's a little more difficult. First of all, what is your relative clause? Whom the scholarship was granted. So let's put parentheses around them. Okay, what is my relative pronoun? That's right, it's whom. And where is it describing? To. Right, it's describing the to. What part of speech is to? Okay, if you are saying preposition, give yourself a gold star because that is a preposition. So because this is a preposition, what do you think this role would play? What object comes after a preposition? That's right, it's the object of the preposition to. So if you see one coming after to, always just, it probably will be the object of the preposition. That's the role that this clause is playing. Think of the clause as a noun. Think of all these words as just a noun. That's why who could be your subject of the clause, and that's why this whom can be the object of the preposition for to. So whom is the object of the preposition for to. Okay, here's the third example. A Christian is a person whose conduct should be above reproach. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so there's my clause, whose conduct should be above reproach. And what is your relative pronoun? Whose. Again, I know that because it is in this list, right, where is it at? Right there. It's a relative adjective. Okay, so this is a relative adjective. It's a little different because it's not playing a noun role. It's describing person. So there's my relative pronoun, and it's describing person. So that's why it means whose describes the noun conduct. Okay. So this whole phrase is describing person. This noun is an adjective describing conduct. It's modifying the word conduct. So let me review that because that was a little confusing. Whose is a relative adjective describing conduct. So you're going to see the word whose in a clause right before a noun. Okay? Okay, so let's look at the last example. There's the painting that I really want. Okay? So what's my clause? That's right. That I really want. What is my relative pronoun? That. Good. Now that is the direct object of want. You say, Miss Flynn, that makes no sense. How is that the direct object of want? Well, you're going to invert this. You would say, I really want that. Okay, so if you look at it like this, I is your subject, want would be your verb, and that would be your direct object. So that's how the word that acts as the direct object. Just put the word that right there instead of over here because it's a relative pronoun. Okay, so let us look at exercise A, and I wrote the first 3 of exercise A on the board, so I'm going to switch to that real quick while you find exercise A on one. Okay guys, you should be looking at exercise A now. I have the first 3 on the board for you. Anne was the only one that had red hair. So, what is my subject of this whole sentence? Anne. What is your verb? Was. Okay. Oh, I didn't go over the instructions with you. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, the instructions for this exercise are: you're going to underline each subject once and the verb twice. You're going to circle your relative pronoun. You're going to put parentheses around each adjective clause. You're going to draw an arrow to the noun it's describing. So we already did the first 2 steps. Anne was the only one that had red hair. So what is my relative clause in this whole sentence? Anne was the only one that had red hair. Very good. that head right here. What is my relative pronoun? That. So you're going to circle your relative pronoun. And then what word is it describing? One. Very good. Okay. Let's look at number 2. The person who is elected to this office will represent our class. So what is my subject of the sentence? Okay, what's the subject of the sentence? That's right, person. What is my whole verb of this sentence? A whole sentence. Okay, good. If you said will represent, you're correct. If you said is, woo. If you said is, that's the verb within the clause. Okay? So what is my clause? What is my relative clause in this sentence? The person who is elected to this office will represent our class. If you said who is elected to this office, you are correct. And what is my relative pronoun? That's right, it's who. And what word is it describing? Person. Very good. Okay, let's look at number 3. Stonewall Jackson is the general that we studied today. So what's your subject? That's right, Stonewall Jackson. And what is your verb? It is your verb. Very good. Okay, so since subject verb, what is my relative clause? Stonewall Jackson is the general that we studied today. That's correct. You always start with your relative pronoun, and then we're going to go. We go to the end. Yes, then we go to the end of the sentence. Okay, so what is my relative pronoun? That's right. It is that.
Fire.
So we circle that. What word is that we studied today describing? That's right, general. So let's make a couple observations here. 1, each of our relative clauses started with a relative pronoun. That, who, and that. Another observation. These clauses are coming right after the noun that they are describing. One, that, person, who, general, that. So keep those in mind as you're going over these exercises. So let me give you a bigger view of this. And if you need to pause it so you can make sure you get the answers, you may. Lily and Ruth? Okay, but for homework or after you watch this video, you need to make sure you complete exercise A. And notice that it goes on to the next page. It goes on to page 149 and just do 1 through 15. And that's the only exercise you have to do today. But make sure you reference number 5 because it lists all of the relative pronouns that start the clause. If a clause you think the answer is does not start with one of these words, it is wrong. So make sure you reference your rules. Reference your sources as you're doing your exercise. Okay guys, have a good day and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.